Well, I'll just introduce myself.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm Ted Finch. I work on campus as a curriculum designer, designing the different online courses, and I love it. It's a lot of fun. And today's keynote got me even more excited about what we do. This is Tyler, and you're going to have to explain.
What I do? You don't know what I do?
I know you work downstairs.
I work downstairs. I work on Dave Ashby's team. We are the training coordinators. Our main responsibility is to provide training materials to instructors to support you. We try and research the best ways to do online instruction with the model that we use here at BYU-Idaho, and then give that information to you. Yeah, that's in a nutshell. There's more, but that's pretty much all.
One of the reasons I was really excited about our topic was, you know, on the side, I design courses, but I love to write, whether it's poetry or fiction. But I really love to tell stories. That's one of my favorite things that I do. And I know with Tyler's, some of your graduate studies, you did look at stories in online learning. So that's kind of how we got connected together. So we want to start off with these questions. Ask yourself, what story do I enjoy? It can be a book, it can be a movie, it can be a play. Just think about what's the story you enjoy, and then think about why you enjoy that story, and then we're going to have a little discussion about that. But for just a little bit, think about what your favorite story is. I wore my tie. Mine should be pretty obvious what one of my favorite ones is. So we'll talk about that. But, you know, think about that for just a minute. You know, what's your favorite story? And then I'm actually going to put some, if I can find the marker, some people's favorite stories. I'll start off saying, one of mine is Harry Potter. Anyone else? What's one of your favorite stories?
Adventures of Huck Finn.
Anyone else? Let's go ahead and shout it out.
Jane Eyre.
Anthem by Neil Stevenson.
Say that one more time.
Anthem, like anthem with extra A. Anna.
Okay, I'm a writer. My spelling horrible, so that's for you.
Let's go Wuthering Heights. Let's get dark.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm going to abbreviate that one.
The Giver. The Giver. Yeah.
That's a good one.
What did you say? Poldark?
You said Poldark?
Poldark.
What about TV shows? Anybody have a favorite TV show?
Poldark.
The Office.
Hey, there we go.
The
Sherlock.
Amazing Race, which is totally plotted out.
Let's see what's movies.
Star Trek.
Star Wars.
I'm going to start a fight.
Let's put star and then anything else below that.
John Adams.
That one's good.
Book and movie, Lord of the Rings.
Pride and Prejudice.
Yes.
We're gonna put extended on
Yes.
this one.
And zombies.
And zombies?
That was okay.
Not much coming in.
No, Anna Green Gables. Gilbert.
Oh, yeah. Galaxy Quest.
That was. What,
Princess Bride.
Oh,
Yes.
yay.
That's on your whole board.
What about Bob?
That would be your strength.
That's probably a good list. And there's a ton of stories that are out there, books, movies, plays, that we love. Why do we love them? Why do we get attached to something that's? Some of these are based on real events. A lot of them are fictional. Why do we get so wrapped into? Oh, I need to put one more up there. Hold on. One of my favorite ones. Lost.
I read a story to my son. It's called Caps for Sale, and it's about a man who goes around with caps on his head. It's just a children's story, and the monkeys steal them. And then the man gets so mad that he shakes his finger, and the monkeys shake their finger back, and he gets really mad. And then finally he throws his flash-remaining hat on the ground, and all the monkeys throw their hats on the ground. And my son thought that was so funny. He's 3. And I wondered, and I looked at it, and this book was written in 1945, and it's still in print. And I wondered, what is it that speaks across the generations, across like the decades. And it's just a common story that we can all identify with. We can all say we've been frustrated at times. We can all say that things have surprised us at times. So there's just this common maybe motivation, something we can identify with. Yeah.
I think we liked it because there's a hero.
I'm so glad you said that. Did anybody watch the movie that I tweeted out?
What was it?
There's a movie that I tweeted out. I've been on
2
Twitter
hours.
all morning,
No,
trying to get people.
Prize?
No.
you win respect. I got trail mix for that.
C.S. Lewis says we read to know that we're not alone. So that's identity too, I guess.
You had your hand up earlier back there.
Just saying emotions, I think we tie to things that make us feel emotional. We remember moments in our lives that make us feel emotional. And these cinematographers have that ability, and these authors have that ability to really tie into emotions in ways.
Man, someone back.
It was the same answer,
Okay.
so, okay. Finance is just to explore new worlds, go back in time and see what it was like during that time, or to go into the future, what it might possibly be, or even to a different country and see what it's like there. It's a way we can travel without leaving our house.
Journey.
That's great. I'm gonna read what's on here. There's this book that I have that it's called Immediate Fiction, and it's basically supposed to be like if you were sitting on a campus taking a whole writing course on how to write. And it says this: says stories as need. We don't just happen to have stories; we need them. The story process involves the kinds of experiences we must talk about. Experiences we can't wait to tell someone. Experiences we can't stand not to talk about. Stories are us. We live by stories, our own and those of others, real and imagined. It's how we relate and stay connected on the most personal and intimate level. We need stories, the story process to maintain our balance and our identity. The story process is the active ingredient in all meaningful social interaction. Believe it or not, it's one of our deepest social needs. There's just something to it. I mean, we connect to it. You find a good story. Sometimes and we're going to talk about why we use stories. Sorry, a little bit later. But one of the things we wanted to start with was some story structure, because we're going to be talking about how to use story later. I'll give you the 30-second version of this. But in every story, no matter all the ones we looked at, they all have this same basic structure, to where you have, this is the middle of you've got your beginning, middle, and end. Between the beginning and middle, there's some event that happens. In the story structure, they call it the plot point. Something happens that keeps you moving from the beginning of the story, where you're hooked, to the middle. Then once you get to the middle, and then to the end, there has to be one more event that happens that keeps it moving. Has anyone ever read a really bad book or watched a really bad movie that just drags? Really hard to get through? It's usually because the author has failed, probably usually at this point, because once you get past this point and in the middle, it just, the action kind of just drops, and you're kind of just waiting like, okay, what's going to happen? When it fails, that's usually why, because they haven't put this in the right place. They moved it too far back. So you're still waiting, you're like, okay, come on, what's going to happen next? So that's just a basic thing. So that's story structure in a little more than 30 seconds. And that's on your handout. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to show this video on the hero's journey. So I'm really glad you mentioned hero. But I'll introduce it. So I showed that story structure. Hero's journey was a concept developed by Joseph Campbell. And it really taught, if you look at any story, there will be at least some elements of the hero's journey in it. Basically, and the video is going to explain this way better than I do. But you're going to start at what they call the status quo. You get a call to adventure, and you start in the ordinary world. Then you go to your special world. You have a series of adventures, series of trials that really push you and challenge you. And then you come back a changed person. And then you have to figure, okay, now that I'm back where I am, what happens now? And so we're going to play this video. It's about 5 minutes-ish. Yeah.
What did Harry Potter Katniss Everdeen and Frodo all have in common with the heroes of ancient myths. What if I told you they are all variants of the same hero? Do you believe that? Joseph Campbell did. He studied myths from all over the world and published a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, retelling dozens of stories and explaining how each represents the monomyth or hero's journey. So, what is the hero's journey? Think of it as a cycle. The journey begins and ends in the hero's ordinary world, but the quest passes through an unfamiliar, special world. Along the way, there are some key events. Think about your favorite book or movie. Does it follow this pattern? Status quo, that's where we start. 1 o'clock, call to adventure. The hero receives a mysterious message, an invitation, a challenge. 2 o'clock, assistance. The hero needs some help, probably from someone older, wiser. 3 o'clock, departure. The hero crosses the threshold from his normal, safe home and enters the special world and adventure. We're not in Kansas anymore. 4 o'clock, trials. Being a hero is hard work. Our hero solves a riddle, slays a monster, escapes from a trap. 5 o'clock, approach. It's time to face the biggest ordeal, the hero's worst fear. 6 o'clock, crisis. This is the hero's darkest hour. He faces death and possibly even dies, only to be reborn. 7 o'clock, treasure. As a result, the hero claims some treasure, special recognition, power. 8 o'clock, result. This can vary between stories. Do the monsters bow down before the hero, or do they chase him as he flees from the special world? 9 o'clock, return. After all that adventure, the hero returns to his ordinary world. 10 o'clock, new life. This quest has changed the hero. He has outgrown his old life. 11 o'clock, resolution. All the tangled plot lines get straightened out. 12 o'clock, status quo, but upgraded to a new level. Nothing is quite the same once you're a hero. Many popular books and movies follow this ancient formula pretty closely, but let's see how well The Hunger Games fits the hero's journey template. When does Katniss Everdeen hear a call to adventure that gets the story moving? When her sister's name is called from the lottery. How about assistance? Is anyone going to help her on her adventure? Hey, Mitch. What about departure? Does she leave her ordinary world? She gets on a train to the capital. Okay, so you get the idea. What do you have in common with Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo? Well, you're human, just like them. The hero's journey myth exists in all human cultures and keeps getting updated because we humans reflect on our world through symbolic stories of our own lives. You leave your comfort zone, have an experience that transforms you, and then you recover and do it again. You don't literally slay dragons or fight Voldemort, but you face problems just as scary. Joseph Campbell said, "In the cave you fear to enter lies the treasure you seek." What is the symbolic cave you fear to enter? Auditions for the school play? Baseball tryouts? Love? Watch for this formula in books, movies, and TV shows you come across. You will certainly see it again, but also be sensitive to it in your own life. Listen for your call to adventure. Accept the challenge. Conquer your fear and claim the treasure you seek. And then do it all over again.
Now we're gonna switch over and now that we've watched that, we're gonna look at a story. We're gonna kind of break it down and see if we can identify some of those components.
Okay, this is awesome. You're kind of paired up for the most part next to someone. If you're not, get in a place where you can get with a small group. So if you're sitting solo, kind of scoot your chair close enough or turn around or scoot forward so you can interact with other people. We're going to take the hero's journey, this model of 12 steps that we've outlined here and seen in the movie, and we're going to reverse engineer the prodigal son. So the scriptures are up here. Luke 15, 11 to 32. On your handout, you'll notice that there's a section in the middle on the first page where you can list these 12 steps. So which verse is a call to adventure for the prodigal son? Which verse was assistance or departure? Where did a crisis happen? What was the treasure that was gained? What was the result, the new life, and the resolution? So take a moment. So turn to the person next to you, kind of read the prodigal son together. We have 5 minutes to do this. I wish it was a little more, but we're trying to catch up to where we are with the shortened time we have. So, and as you find it, just write the verse number next to the step on your paper. And I will let you know when time's up. So this was our findings, and they may not line up with yours, and that's okay. You may have recognized different points in the story as calling out to you being a little off from what we found. Sometimes we duplicate it, and sometimes we're like, maybe the step isn't there at all. But in the majority of stories I have seen that I've been looking at since we were preparing for this presentation, there's going to be some sort of crisis, almost always. There's some sort of departure that happens. There's always some sort of treasure or result that is found. How did you guys do? Did you feel like you kind of lined up with us a little bit?
Yeah.
Maybe a little off, and that's fine. Did anyone kind of like add on to the end of the story with the second step? Did you feel like there was a new adventure kind of starting there?
Yeah.
That's what I felt too. It's like, oh, I want to put this. Feels like there's so many stories going on in here. There's so many perspectives we could take, and so many roles that everyone is playing that they're all kind of their own hero. And that maybe this is the beginning of the older brother's story. We just didn't get to hear about from the Savior, but we can always kind of continue that into our own lives and say, all right, I've been the older son. Where am I going with my story? Cool.
Just one thing, it's interesting how this hero didn't do well in the special world. He didn't slay any enemies. It's like he went and he got beat up and he, hunkers back to the ordinary world, and then the treasure is his father still accepts him, even though we wouldn't call him a conquering hero. He was conquered in every way. So
I like that perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have any insights about that?
He did conquer his ego and his attitude.
Okay.
He was forced to be humble.
Yeah, he was.
So in a lot of these kind of fantasy stories, we see some sort of an external force, but for him, it was an internal struggle that he had to conquer his pride. Yes?
I'd like to hear more about the dad's story, his internal struggle to have to forgive his son, just come back. I'd love to write that story.
And the story was
He's a
really,
hero to me.
yeah, the story was really condensed, wasn't it? I mean, we didn't delve into the father's mind very deeply. Maybe he did have more of that internal struggle. And it leaves it open to a lot of sort of interpretation and relation with how would I feel if I was the father? What would be the steps leading up to accepting my son back and, forgiving him? Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were raising your hand.
Just scratching my forehead.
Anyone else? I'm going to pass it over to Ted here.
All right. And that's actually a really good point. I'm going to give you a challenge. And if I say it now, I won't forget. Go look at the beginning of the Book of Mormon. Look at Nephi, and then Laman and Lemuel. And since you said the father, I'm going to throw Lehi in there as well. And we didn't put this in here, but when you look at the hero's journey, and in the video I talked about how you're on this continual journey. There's little mini journeys, but if you take that cycle and you flip it on its side, as it's going around, you're either going up or you're going down. Nephi is going up. He's still hitting all the points on that hero's journey. Laman and Lemuel, they're going down. They're still hitting the points that are on there, but they're not moving up in the world. In their own minds, they might be, but from an eternal perspective, they're not. And you can do the same thing with the prodigal son here. The older brother, at one point, was maybe moving up, but as soon as his younger brother comes back on that journey, he's still going on a journey, but it's starting to it's spiraling down. Now he's still going on that journey. But that's one thing to think about. So that I've tried to look at the scriptures since we've been preparing for this through the hero's journey, and it's opening up a ton. So I'm like, oh, they are on their own journeys. I'm on my own journey, and it's helped me connect in a different way with it. But the narrative is so powerful. Yeah.
Goes back to pre-existence. That same hero's journey was there with Satan, Christ, Heavenly Father.
Yeah.
That's where it all started.
Yeah. That's a really good point. That's the reason I love this topic so much is, and it's hard for me to keep it condensed because I can go on and on, but it connects to everything. Think about opposition in your own life, how that relates to a story, and how opposition is so important. But I won't get started on that, or we won't get to anything else. I wanted to look at something. We wanted to pull, like, what is research saying about why narrative is so important. I'm just gonna talk at the top when we have a link to the presentation in the course, so you can go back and read all these. But it says narrative is a scheme by which human beings are given meaning to their experience, temporality, and personal actions. But this bottom one, this is what I really wanted to hit, about why narrative is so powerful and how it can have such a huge impact on learning. Is there someone who wouldn't mind reading that for me?
I really appreciate it when the instructors take the course content and relate it to their own personal experiences. I relate the readings to my own life, and when they share their ideas and experience, I learn so much from them. And can I say, right now on LDS.org, there is a piece on mental illness that is narrated by Elder Holland, and he uses himself and his own experiences, and then there are narrations from lots of other people. Man, is it powerful.
Glad you mentioned that. That is a very powerful one.
I had a student this week in my discussion board who said, nobody's responded to my posts for 3 weeks. And I got on there, I was like, except for me, right? But he said, anyone give me any feedback? Am I not making interesting posts? And nobody responded to him for a while. And so I went on there and wanted to make sure that he felt heard. And I said this same thing. I said, if you can take what we're talking about and relate something personal to it, that might connect with the other people in this class more. Because I find in my discussion boards, when students are doing exactly this, then the other students respond, and those are the most productive discussions.
That's a very common. It's like the concept of likening the scriptures unto ourselves. And we've got to find ways. We also need to liken the content to ourselves, to our own lives. We go to the next slide, Tyler.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is, in the research, it's got it broken down, and just the things I've seen when I'm designing courses. If you're going to use story in an educational setting, there's kind of these 4 types that have been broken down. We've got narrative-based, scenario-based, problem-based, and then case-based. The scenario is, you're just creating a scenario. What would you do in this situation? Narrative, you might be telling a story. Problem, there's definitely a problem to be solved. That might come in helpful, especially like in a math class. And then case-based. But we're going to break into, I'm going to switch it over to Tyler, and he's going to talk about, as an instructor, what are some things you can do? Because I'm a designer, and there's a lot of things I can do with story. But in the role you have as an online instructor, how can you use story? It's going to be different because you're not designing a course, you're not creating the content. So what can you do? And Tyler's got some really good things that he's going to share.
Yeah. So that's a great question to kind of kick it off for us. Before we get into it too much, oh yeah, let's go into it anyway. All right. So as an instructor, what are the ways that you interact with your students? How can you share your stories? Notes?
Email.
So notes / announcements. Ooh, that's 2 N's just in case anyone's an English major out there. Notes, announcements. What was the other one?
Discussion boards.
Discussion boards.
Email.
I'm on a roll now. Email. What was the one before email? Feedback. Sorry. Thank you.
Instructor profile.
Your profile could be a great place. Awesome. I didn't even think of that one.
That's good.
Anything else?
Virtual.
You could make a screencast, so it doesn't have to be text.
We do online meetings weekly. We have weekly online meetings.
With your students?
Yeah.
Okay. So, just weekly
Office hour or
And also in the Adobe Connect room, you can leave information posted.
Adobe Connect room. Awesome.
Some students call me.
Over the phone.
So We didn't hear voice.
We actually have a Facebook page for that course. Oh, cool, Facebook page. Social media can be a great idea. Awesome. So these are a lot of great ways that you have an opportunity to interact with and share with your students. You may not have the same control that, for example, Ted does as being a designer, but these are ways in which you can use stories to help your students not only relate to their content that you're teaching, but to understand it and to, for me, the example I think of is like math. When I was growing up, like, why do I need to know this? Where am I ever going to learn this? And then having a teacher kind of say, well, an X value is an unknown variable. How are you going to solve for that? When do you need to know something using math, which a variable, it may be unknown, and then work through it, and you can come to an answer. And I just had some really great teachers that were able to help me understand not only the content, but why it was important and how I could relate to it. And I feel like that's one thing stories really do, is they provide that motivation, that engagement. So here we're going to brainstorm. Let's go through and let's create our own story. We just went through the hero's journey's 12 steps, and you took a story and broke it down. You identified different parts from which that formula is useful. And as you do that through your own curriculum, through your own teaching and experiences, I'm sure you're going to see not only the content, but how your students learn and where those points exist for them. I'm going to use a personal experience as well, but first of all, I want you to think of what is a principle or a lesson that you have taught or will teach in your class. Kind of think about your course, your material. What's something that maybe your students have struggled with in the past and you're kind of anticipating the need in the future? Got something in your head? So as you're brainstorming, you can use your paper to write it down. For me, in my example, I teach GS 120 occasionally. And so I'm going to focus on what just happened in GS 120 with the SMART goals. So week 9, they kind of set a SMART goal and they're supposed to apply it. And I'm going to walk you through my experience of creating one. And hopefully you can do that the same with your class and your course content. So, sorry, go ahead and hit the next one for me. Thanks, Ted. Okay, so these are some questions I created, just kind of that for me helped focus me on the hero's journey and got me brainstorming on how I can create different points. This first question, what am I trying to accomplish? What am I trying to teach? That kind of goes back to those 4 types of stories: narrative, scenario, problem-based. What is my ultimate objective? Do I want to just kind of share a story to provide them some motivation? Am I trying to illustrate a common pitfall that happens with my students and say, avoid this? This is what happens, happens a lot, so be aware of it. Think about what your purpose is with the story. And that will give you your treasure, is what I pulled from it. What is my treasure ultimately I want my students to bring from this? The second question, how did I learn this thing, or how have I seen others learn it? This helps explain kind of the beginning of your learning process, how you went through it on your own, and creates an opportunity for you to then share that information with your students. I feel like this, for me, was kind of the trials, or the departure, or the approach and assistance steps in my own journey. What were those steps that I encountered? Here we have our third one. This is kind of my crisis. And then the second one here is the result. So what were my main struggles? What was the thing that almost broke me? Or it maybe did break me in the story? And how did I overcome it? And then last, this is kind of like the resolution. So what was different for me at the end? Sometimes you get to this point, and sometimes you stop here. And you say, all right, what could be learned, or what could have been done differently, depending on your purpose. But for me, in my story, I want to say, what was different for me at the end of the experience? How was I a different person? Got that one. Just trying to check on our time. Got a couple minutes. Okay, so this is kind of just a really quick outline I created with my own story. My goal was to illustrate for them failing to achieve a SMART goal. So that's going to be the crisis of whatever story I come up with. My treasure is realization that a bad SMART goal planning doesn't accomplish as much towards achieving that goal. I want to show them that if you didn't plan well, it doesn't lead to good results. And I think we're all aware of this, but sometimes a story just helps illustrate the importance of why something is needing to be done properly. And then resolution, identifying where things went wrong and how they will be different next time. As I went through this, I just kind of want to give you my own experience. I started to create something sort of fictitious, kind of tried to create my own characters. It was harder for me because as I was going for it, I wasn't really focused on any sort of content material. With you people, you are experts in your content areas. This is why we hired you as as online instructors. You know your content, you've lived it, you've breathed it, and you've been there interacting with your students. I know you have a wealth of experiences to draw on. And so when I was trying to do it, I found it very difficult to tap into a subject matter. I started to try and do a math one, and it was very difficult for me because I didn't have as much experience to draw on that had happened to me recently. So I want to just point out to you as you go forward, pull from your own experiences or from those that you've witnessed, that you have seen with your content material. Go ahead. Oh no, it's froze. This is the story I created. So I'm just going to read this to you real quick. I'm going to step out of the way of the camera, so if anyone's watching, they can get with this. I've seen many students submit SMART goals. Oh, and just kind of as an FYI, I would be posting this in the discussion board at the beginning of the assignment that says, please post your SMART goal ideas and what you're thinking of doing. I wanted to have it there because I wanted students to read it before they posted their own as an opportunity to kind of self-reflect before they went into creating their own SMART goal. So I've seen many students submit SMART goals in my years of teaching. I want to share with you an example from my own life about goal setting. I had wanted to run a half marathon. It was a bucket list item. And to be completely transparent, I probably set the goal to prove to myself I still had what it took and was in shape. I set an optimistic goal to run a half marathon in July. I did all the critical steps, bought the nice shoes, downloaded the latest app to help me track my progress, picked up some nice running shorts. I had everything I needed to start. You can tap that for me real quick. That's what I had. So pretty awesome. Tap it one more time for me. But I delayed. So don't get me wrong. I made half-hearted, sporadic attempts to train, running a mile here, several miles there, maybe once a week. Finally, with the monthly calendar pages slowly counting down, I started to take it seriously in April. I ran into my first roadblock a week into running seriously and had to stop due to pain in my foot. A doctor visit later and custom-made foot orthotics, I was once again ready to prove my youth. By now, it was early May. I realized my previous efforts needed better focus and more structure. So I did a quick Google search, found a 10-week training program, and began training seriously. Again, I met new personal records of running 5 and 6 miles without stopping during the first few weeks when I began my uphill and downhill training. Then I hit another roadblock with shin splints and a knee injury 5 weeks out from the deadline. I had to take a 2-week respite to heal, limiting my remaining training to a 4-week period. So up to this point, this is kind of where I've had my crisis. This is for me just hitting that ultimate sort of road stop that I'm on a time crunch, I'm getting low to the end. Have you seen some of the other steps in here as we've been going? If I were to do this again, I would definitely revise my SMART goal. While I ended with something specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-based, I ran into some issues by not considering how much time I would need or beginning earlier in my quest. Probably a little typo. That happens. I didn't create a training regimen early enough or engage early enough to see and address the issues I eventually encountered further down the road. I learned what to do and not to do through my mistakes, but risked failing in my SMART goal by not leaving enough time. So this is, what was my treasure, real quick, maybe? Running a marathon. What did I learn from this experience? Start earlier. What else could I have learned?
Small steps.
Small steps.
Plan on hitting a wall.
Expect walls along your way.
Running a half marathon or marathon is just another run in training. Like, people who do this all the time, that's just an organized run, but they're constantly running, otherwise, yeah.
Awesome. Yes?
You made new personal records, so that's when you treasure.
Thank you. I'm glad you noticed that. Everyone else was right too, but that one was kind of like my, at least I did this one sort of thing. I think that recognition is really important too. And so what I can then do is with this SMART goal, as they set their own goals and they continue through their progress, I imagine they're going to hit roadblocks too. They're going to fail. Some of them are going to run into unforeseen circumstances. It just happens. And then I can relate back to this and say, well, how well did you do? Did you hit some good personal records? Were you achieving in a positive direction? And so that was kind of my ultimate purpose with this story, is to then use it to help encourage and motivate them, as well as hopefully earlier on help them anticipate that this could be a little bit of a challenge. Yeah.
I like what you did. You made the SMART goal personal, which, you know, we try to get our students to do SMART goals, but it's all about the course. But if they did something personal, that kind of instills it more into their life, you know.
For sure, and this is actually a personal story. This is happening right now. I am actually in my 3rd week of healing. I was on the ropes course yesterday and I injured myself again, so I have 3 weeks for my half marathon. I'll let you know how it goes. But yeah, this is kind of what I want to encourage you to do with your course. You have many opportunities to engage with your students. You see the areas where they may be struggling. And for those of you who are in leadership, I want to just put in a plug like TGL's aims. You also have an opportunity to do this with your instructors as well, to share your personal experiences and just connect with them in a way that they know that these struggles aren't unique to them, that it happens with all of us, and that there are ways around it and that they will get through it. Yeah. We got like 1 minute left. Let's go to the last slide. I'm sorry. We're hoping to give you more time. Here's what I want to leave you with then. You have this great outline, and you have Ted's, what he talked about earlier, the 3 stages, and you can kind of use this to help sporadically insert these 12 steps throughout. Like this might be your crisis here, or your approach. And so this just helps you create a better outline as you're going forward. Recognize that when you're thinking of stories you want to share, what was my crisis, what was my treasure? And this will help you condense your story. Because again, this is an online environment. We don't want to write 5-page, 10-page stories. If a student sees that much text, they're not going to engage. So find ways to make your story as tight and impactful as possible using these simple steps. And then throw in a little bit of personality. Share your emotion as you went through it, or the emotion of whoever else was going through it. Oh, go ahead and tap it one more time. And then with everything, we want to encourage you, please share your story online. This is an opportunity to teach one another. Log into the iLearn 3 course and just maybe share your outline if that's what you're comfortable with. Say, here's what I want to accomplish. Here's the crisis I'm anticipating being the ultimate thing. Here are some trials leading up to it. And here is what the treasure and how I will be different afterwards. And this will be an opportunity for you to maybe motivate someone who is struggling with their own chance to create a story as well.
I think you could even throw in there if there's something that you, like Tyler asked earlier, think of a challenge that you want to solve or something students are struggling with, post that in there too. If you're not sure what you can do, post it in there, and then you can tap into everybody, and maybe someone else is going to have an idea of what you can do with that, whatever you want to try to use narrative for. But I think that's a great resource. The handouts in there, presentations in there.
Did you say you suggested a movie ahead of time? I didn't see that. What
Oh, so it's the one that we watched. Yeah.
Just kind of prep you. And sorry, for those of you interested as well, a lot of the material we used here is on the handout. So if you have some time and you want to continue exploring this on your own, this is the video. This is a web page that talks about the hero's journey, and these are some resources. Some of these are like based in education and how to use the material in your own learning. This one, I'll point this out and then I'll let you go, is the one that talks about narrative-based, case-based, scenario-based, those 4 areas. And it delves in more deeply and provides examples on what it's talking about when it uses those different titles. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have you here. Enjoy the rest of the conference.